The alien assassin cornered him, then dropped her blade and whispered, "I found you." The solar storm turned the station's hull into a symphony of destruction. Each plasma burst, painting the metal in shades of violet and gold. Sera Vail clung to the exterior plating, magnetic clamps holding her steady while chaos rendered every sensor within 1,000 kilometers blind. She activated the plasma torch, and reinforced alloy peeled away like flesh under a scalpel. The maintenance corridor inside was tomb-silent, except for the rhythmic pulse of life support. She dropped through the breach, boots connecting with the deck without sound, and sealed the hull behind her. Her internal display mapped the station's layout. 47 personnel, most unconscious in their sleep cycles. One guard on patrol, closing on her position from the east junction. She pressed herself into an alcove, blade already drawn. The monomolecular edge hummed faintly, its surface drinking in the corridor's amber emergency lighting. Footsteps approached with the steady rhythm of boredom. Technician Hayes rounded the corner, his attention on a datapad, and she moved. Her palm sealed his mouth, while the blade's weighted pommel found the nerve cluster behind his ear with surgical precision. He went limp. She eased him down, checked his pulse, strong and steady, then continued toward the research wing. The station's network parted under her intrusion like it wanted to be violated. Security protocols dissolved, camera feeds looped, access doors unlocked at her approach. She'd been built for this, every synapse rewired for infiltration and termination. No hesitation, no doubt, just the mission. Lab 7 appeared on her display, buried deep in the facility's core. She accessed the surveillance feed and froze. Dr. Owen Rivers stood at his workstation, back to the camera, shoulders hunched over a holographic interface that painted his features in cold blue light. Dark hair, lean frame, hands moving through the projection with the confidence of someone who'd performed these gestures 10,000 times. He was alone, vulnerable, perfect. Oh, Sera studied him through 3 camera angles while she navigated the maintenance shafts. Something about the way he moved, the tilt of his head when he reviewed data, the unconscious gesture of rubbing his left temple when frustrated, created a flutter of sensation in her chest. Foreign, unwanted. She ran a diagnostic on her neural implants. All systems nominal. She dismissed the feeling and continued her approach. The research wing's corridors were wider, cleaner, lined with windows that looked into laboratories filled with equipment she couldn't name. Lab 7's door was reinforced, but her override codes treated it like a polite suggestion. The lock disengaged with a soft click that felt too loud in the silence. Owen Rivers remained at his workstation, apparently oblivious. She counted his vulnerabilities as she entered. Exposed neck, unarmored torso, no weapon visible within reach. The holographic display showed neural pathway diagrams, synaptic firing patterns, data that meant nothing to her beyond its strategic value. She crossed the lab in 4 silent steps, blade rising. 3 meters. 2. 1. "I know you're there," he said without turning. "I've been waiting for you." Her blade stopped a hand's width from his spine. He rotated slowly on his stool, movements careful and deliberate, palms visible and empty. No fear colored his expression, only exhaustion that looked years deep, and something else. Something that made her implants flicker with interference. Hope. "The resonance data," she said. "Give it to me." "No." She closed the distance, pressing the blade's edge against his throat. A thin line of crimson appeared, tracing down to his collar. He didn't flinch. "You're interfering with corporate property. The penalty is termination." "You won't kill me." She increased pressure, more blood. His pulse beat against the blade, steady and strong. "I've killed 47 targets. You're 48. "No," he said, voice soft. "You can't, because you know me. I've never seen you before." He smiled then, sad and tender and completely wrong for someone with a weapon at their throat. "You always pressed too hard when you were nervous," he whispered. The words detonated something in her skull. White light. A laboratory different from this one, smaller, walls covered in neural mapping displays. His hands gentle on her temples, fitting a device to her head, a crown of silver filaments that hummed against her skin. His voice, "Just breathe. I've got you." The sensation of falling into warmth, into safety, into... The memory shattered. She was back in Lab 7, blade trembling in her hand, staring at a man who watched her with the eyes of someone seeing a ghost return to life. "What did you do to me?" "Nothing," Owen said. "They did it. Let me show you." His hand moved toward the device on his desk. She should stop him, should complete the mission, should drive the blade home and be done with it. Instead, she watched as his fingers found the activation stud. The lab filled with sound, a frequency that bypassed her ears and went straight into her neural architecture. Her implants shrieked in protest, firewalls collapsing, and suddenly she wasn't alone inside her own head. He was there with her, his consciousness pressing against hers like a hand reaching through dark water. Emotion hit her like a shockwave, grief so deep it had its own gravity. Desperate, clawing hope, 7 years of loneliness compressed into a single moment of contact, and beneath it all, steady as a heartbeat, recognition. She knew him. Her knees hit the floor, the blade clattered from nerveless fingers. Owen collapsed beside her, gasping, one hand reaching for her face, while tears tracked down his cheeks. His thoughts bled into hers, memories of her laughing, her hands in his, her lips against his neck. Memories she shouldn't have, but somehow did, buried under layers of conditioning and surgical modification. "What is this?" she managed. "The resonance protocol," he said, voice breaking. "I made it for you, to bring you back to me." Their hands found each other, fingers interlacing while their minds struggled to stabilize the connection. She could feel him feeling her, an infinite loop of sensation and emotion that threatened to drown them both. Through the link, she experienced his perspective of this moment, saw herself through his eyes, blue skin pale with shock, white hair wild around her face, orange eyes wide with something between terror and wonder. "Beautiful," his thoughts whispered, "still so beautiful." "I don't understand," she said. "I know, but you will. I promise you will." The station's alarm system screamed to life, red emergency lighting flooding the lab. Director Kane's voice cut through the facility's speakers, cold and efficient. "Operative Wraith, you have 30 minutes to complete your assignment. After that, we sterilize the station. No witnesses, no evidence." Owen pulled her to her feet, his hands still locked with hers. "We need to run." Her conditioning demanded she complete the mission. Her training insisted she eliminate the witness and extract the data. But the connection between them pulsed with something stronger than programming, and when he tugged her toward the maintenance corridor, her body followed. They ran. The maintenance corridor stretched ahead like a throat, narrow and dimly lit, walls close enough that Sera's shoulders nearly brushed both sides. Owen's hand remained locked with hers, his palm slick with sweat, and through the resonance connection she felt his fear mixing with determination. Her implants screamed warnings, mission failure, target alive, handlers incoming, but the neural link overrode everything with its insistent pulse of familiarity. "Left here," Owen said, pulling her into a junction she'd mapped during infiltration. She moved ahead automatically, checking angles, scanning for threats. Her body knew how to protect, even when her mind was fragmenting. "Tell me what you did to me." "Not here when we're safe." "We won't be safe." "Then I'll talk fast." They emerged into a cargo transfer hub, crates stacked 3 meters high, creating corridors within the larger space. Owen navigated with practiced ease while Sera's combat protocols ran continuous threat assessments. 2 cameras, disabled. 3 access points, monitored. 17 potential ambush positions. The memory hit without warning. This same cargo bay, but different, cleaner. She was laughing at something Owen said, her hand resting on a crate while he gestured wildly, explaining some concept with childlike enthusiasm. She'd been wearing civilian clothes. She'd been happy. "Stop!" she gasped, bracing against a container. Owen turned back, concern flooding through their link before he could voice it. "What did you see?" "This place, us, I was different. You were yourself before they took you." The station shuddered, an explosion somewhere in the research wing, her handlers' forces accelerating their timeline. Owen's jaw tightened. "They're not waiting 30 minutes. They never do, keep targets off balance." She straightened, pushing the memory aside, and they continued toward the auxiliary docking bay. Owen had been planning this. Emergency supplies staged, escape routes memorized, a ship ready to launch. How long had he been waiting? 7 years, his thoughts whispered through the link. 7 years, 4 months, 16 days. The precision made her stumble. He'd counted every day. They reached a vertical access shaft. Sera went first, scaling the ladder with liquid grace, while Owen climbed behind her, slower but steady. At the top, she hauled him through and found herself facing a sealed blast door marked Authorized Personnel Only Bay 7. Your ship. Modified transport, fast, not armed. I'm a scientist, not a soldier. You'll need to be both now. She bypassed the lock while he caught his breath. The resonance link carried more than emotions. She could feel his elevated heart rate, the burn in his legs, the headache building behind his eyes. It was intimate in a way that made her conditioning recoil. The blast door opened onto a small docking bay containing a single vessel. Sleek lines, recent modifications, experimental shielding, built for speed and stealth, not combat. How long to launch? 2 minutes if we're... The bay's upper access points exploded inward. 3 figures rappelled down on monofilament lines, weapons already tracking. Sera recognized the combat suits, the synchronized movements, the absolute efficiency. Agent Vorn led the team, his blade already drawn. Through his helmet's visor, she saw eyes that knew her. Operative Wraith, stand down, the malfunction can be corrected. I'm not malfunctioning. Your neural implants show active interference. You've been compromised by the target's technology. Step away from him. We'll extract you both for analysis. Owen's hand found the small of her back. She felt his terror through the link, not for himself, but for her. What they'd do if they took her back. The memory wipes, the reconditioning, the surgical adjustments, she said. That wasn't a request. Vorn moved first, trusting his team to follow. They'd trained together, fought together, killed together. Sera knew every technique he'd use because she'd learned them alongside him. The difference was that now she had a reason to win beyond mission completion. She met his blade with hers, monomolecular edges screaming where they connected. His first strike tested her reflexes. His second tested her resolve. His third was meant to kill, and she barely deflected it past her ribs. The other 2 operatives moved on Owen, and through the link she felt his panic spike. Ship, she shouted, get it ready. He ran, smart enough to know he'd only slow her down, trusting enough to believe she could handle this. Sera drove Vorn back with a combination he'd taught her, then pivoted to intercept the nearest operative. Her blade found the gap between his helmet and chest plate. He went down hard. 2 left. The second operative adapted, switching from lethal strikes to disabling ones. They wanted her alive if possible, wanted to fix what Owen had broken. She used their restraint against them, pressing attacks that forced them to choose between safety and capture protocols. Vorn's blade caught her across the ribs, pain white-hot and immediate, the suit's armor parting like paper. She felt Owen's reaction through the link, his horror, his guilt, and used it to fuel her next strike. Vorn's helmet shattered under her elbow. He staggered back, nose broken, blood streaming. The third operative made a mistake then, glancing at his team leader instead of watching his opponent. Sera's blade found his thigh, severing the femoral artery. He collapsed, hands scrabbling at the wound. Vorn stood alone, swaying, one hand pressed to his face. Through the blood, he looked at her with something between pity and respect. You are the best of us. I was never one of you. She didn't kill him. Didn't need to. She ran for the ship instead, Owen's urgency pulling her through the connection like a tether. He'd gotten the engines hot, the cockpit door open, emergency protocols overriding safety checks. She dove through the hatch as weapons fire tracked her path, the blast door behind them already cycling shut. The ship lurched away from the dock, Owen's piloting rough but effective. Sera collapsed into the co-pilot seat, her hand pressed to her ribs where blood seeped through her fingers. The wound wasn't fatal, but it hurt like someone had shoved burning metal between her bones. Owen's hands shook on the controls. Medical kit behind your seat. She retrieved it while he navigated through the debris field surrounding the station, smaller chunks of ice and rock providing cover. The kit was well stocked. He'd planned for casualties. She unsealed her damaged armor, material peeling away with a wet sound that made Owen flinch, even though he kept his eyes on the flight path. I can do it. Keep flying. The wound was clean, the blade's edge so sharp it had barely cauterized. She applied synth skin, watching it bond with torn tissue, and felt Owen's relief mixing with lingering horror through their connection. He blamed himself. She could taste the guilt. "Stop that," she said. "Stop what?" "Blaming yourself for my choices." His laugh was bitter. "I activated the protocol. I brought you into this. I came here to kill you. You gave me an alternative." She sealed the medical kit and leaned back, exhaustion catching up with adrenaline. "Tell me the truth now. All of it." So he did. He talked while he flew, his voice steady despite the emotion bleeding through their link. The Resonance Protocol, humanity's breakthrough in neural synchronization, designed to let crews share consciousness across vast distances. How he'd theorized it could work with alien neurology but needed a volunteer. How she'd appeared at a diplomatic conference representing her government's science ministry, curious and brilliant and unafraid. "You volunteered," Owen said, "against your superior's direct orders. You believed the technology could bridge our species' differences." Another memory surfaced, a laboratory filled with equipment that hummed with potential. Owen fitting the neural crown to her head while she smiled up at him, trusting completely. The first time their minds touched, the shock of it, the wonder, the sense of coming home to a place she'd never been. "We fell in love," she said. "Yes." "How long?" 4 months, best 4 months of my life." The ship shook. Warning lights flared across the console, 3 contacts closing fast. Alien interceptors, moving with purpose. Through the view screen, she watched them arrange themselves into pursuit formation. "They found us," Owen said. Sera pulled herself into the weapons station, her ribs screaming protest. The interface was human-designed but intuitive. She brought targeting systems online while Owen pushed their speed past recommended limits. "How long to the nearest human outpost?" 3 hours at maximum burn. "We won't last 10 minutes against interceptors." "I know." Through the link, she felt his mind working, running calculations, weighing options. She added her own tactical analysis, and something strange happened. Their thoughts merged, creating solutions neither could have reached alone. It was what the Resonance Protocol was designed for, perfect synchronization. "The asteroid field," they said simultaneously. Owen angled toward the dense cluster of rock and ice, while Sera calibrated weapons. The interceptors followed, their superior firepower meaningless if they couldn't get clean shots. The first volley of missiles tracked them into the field, and Owen's hands danced across controls with her guidance feeding through the link. They dodged, weaved, used asteroids for cover while she returned fire. 1 interceptor exploded in a bloom of orange fire, 2 remained. They emerged from the field's far side with minimal lead time. The interceptors closed, weapons hot. Sera fired everything they had, but it wasn't enough. One of the enemy ships locked on. "Brace," Owen said. The impact threw Sera against her restraints. Alarms screamed. Hull breach warnings flashed across every screen. Owen fought the controls, trying to stabilize their tumbling trajectory, but their engines were dying. Through the link, Sera felt his desperation reaching for hers, and together they formed a new plan. Insane, desperate, their only chance. "I need to board them," she said. "Absolutely not. Do you have a better idea?" Silence. Then, through the connection, his reluctant agreement mixed with terror for her safety. "I hate this plan." She retrieved her blade and checked the thruster pack's charge. Owen's fear followed her like a physical weight, but beneath it she felt something else. Faith. He believed she could do this. The airlock cycled. Space beckoned beyond, cold and infinite. Sera checked her suit seals one last time. "Don't die," Owen said through the link, his voice raw. "Not planning on it." She launched into the black, toward the interceptor closing for the kill. The void swallowed sound, leaving only the rasp of her breathing and Owen's presence in her mind. He fed her trajectory corrections, velocity calculations, targeting data. They worked as one entity split across 2 bodies. Debris from their damaged ship provided cover. She used chunks of hull plating as shields, the thruster pack burning hard to match the interceptor's speed. Weapons fire tracked her path, plasma bolts turning space around her into a light show. One grazed her shoulder, and Owen gasped in shared pain. She reached the interceptor's hull and activated magnetic clamps. The ship's surface thrummed with engine vibrations that traveled through her suit. She pulled herself toward a maintenance hatch while the pilot tried to shake her loose with evasive maneuvers. The plasma torch made quick work of the access panel. She dropped into a narrow maintenance corridor, gravity reasserting itself with jarring suddenness. 4 crew members. Elite soldiers like she used to be. But she had advantages they didn't. She knew their training intimately, and Owen was in her head providing tactical support. The first soldier rounded a corner and died before he could raise his weapon. The second managed to trigger an alarm before her blade found his throat. The third caught her with a shock baton that sent voltage screaming through her nervous system. The resonance connection shrieked with interference. For a moment, her conditioning resurged, and she couldn't remember why she was fighting her own people. Through the static, she heard Owen's voice. "I've got you. Just breathe." The same words from their first session. It anchored her. She drove the blade through the soldier's visor and continued toward the cockpit. The 4th crew member, the pilot, spun in his chair as she entered, sidearm already drawn. She was faster. His shot went wide. Hers didn't. She dragged his body from the seat and accessed the ship's controls. "I'm in," she said through the link, "slaving their navigation to our systems now." The interceptor's interface responded to her commands, and Owen's expertise flowed through their connection, guiding her hands. Within seconds, both ships were synchronized, flying in tandem toward the human outpost. Director Kane's voice cut through the comms, no longer cold and professional, but furious. "Operative Wraith, you are committing treason against your entire species. Return immediately for reconditioning or face permanent termination." Sera accessed the ship's data core, pulling files on her own conditioning, her previous life, the illegal experiments her government conducted. She compressed it all into a single data burst and sent it back to Kane. "My name is Sera Vail," she said, "and you don't own me anymore." She destroyed the interceptor's long-range communications array and killed the second remaining pursuit ship with a missile barrage. Then she transferred back to Owen's vessel through the airlock tether, abandoning the interceptor to drift. His arms were around her the moment she cleared the airlock, his hands checking for injuries even though he'd felt every wound through their link. She pressed her forehead against his, their breathing synchronized, their thoughts tangled together. "We're not clear yet," he said. "I know." The human outpost appeared on their sensors, a small military station orbiting a gas giant. Relief flooded through both of them, safety, sanctuary, a chance to... New contact, massive. A cruiser-class vessel dropping out of FTL behind them, weapons already charging. Kane wasn't bluffing, Sera said. Owen's hands flew across the controls, pushing their damaged engines past safety limits. 15 minutes to the outpost. The cruiser needed 10 to close firing range. "We're not going to make it," he said. Through the link, Sera felt his mind working, weighing options. She added her analysis, and the answer crystallized between them. Terrible. Final. Their only chance. "The protocol," she said. "Full broadcast. That will expose everything, every memory, every moment between us. Everyone at that outpost will see." "I know." He met her eyes. In them, she saw 7 years of searching, 4 months of love, and the willingness to sacrifice anything for her freedom. "Do it," she said. Owen's fingers found the controls, and the resonance protocol activated at maximum power. Their combined consciousness exploded outward, broadcasting to every receiver within range. The outpost's communication officers would see everything. Her as a diplomat, their love, her abduction, her torture, his 7-year quest. Every intimate moment laid bare for strangers to witness. It was violation and salvation mixed together. The outpost commander's voice came through, professional but shocked. "Transport vessel, this is Commander Frost. We're reading your transmission. Stand by for," a pause, "my God, weapons free. All batteries, engage that cruiser." The outpost's defensive guns opened fire, massive railgun rounds tearing through space. The cruiser's shields flared, but it was forced to break off its attack run to avoid catastrophic damage. "Docking Bay 3 is open," Frost continued. "Get in here, now." Owen pushed their dying ship toward safety while Sera monitored the cruiser's position. It was retreating, outgunned, and unwilling to start an interstellar incident over one escaped asset. They collapsed into the docking bay, systems failing, both bleeding from various wounds. Medical teams swarmed them as they stumbled from the airlock. Sera reached for Owen's hand as stretchers materialized. Through the resonance link, now permanent, burned into both their neural structures, she spoke directly into his mind. "Thank you for never giving up." He squeezed her hand, voice hoarse. "I found you." She corrected him, certain despite everything. "No, I found you." Consciousness faded, but the connection remained, steady and unbreakable as a heartbeat. Sera woke to white walls and the smell of antiseptic. Medical equipment beeped steadily beside her bed, monitoring vitals that had stabilized hours ago. Her ribs ached where synth skin had knitted torn tissue, and her shoulder throbbed where the plasma bolt had grazed her. But she was alive. More importantly, Owen was alive. She felt him through the resonance link before she saw him. Exhaustion, relief, worry that only eased when he sensed her consciousness returning. "Hey," he said softly. She turned her head. He sat in a chair pulled close to her bed, his hand resting near hers on the blanket. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and fresh bandages wrapped his forearm where he'd taken shrapnel during their escape. But he smiled, and through the link she felt the weight that had crushed him for 7 years finally beginning to lift. "How long?" she asked. 18 hours. The doctors wanted to sedate you longer, but your metabolism burned through it." She reached for his hand, fingers interlacing with practiced ease. The connection pulsed stronger with physical contact, their thoughts bleeding together until she couldn't tell where her relief ended and his began. They saw everything. Everything. The outpost commander, her staff, probably half the station by now. Our entire relationship broadcast like a public service announcement. Heat crept across her cheeks. An unfamiliar sensation. The conditioning had burned away most of her capacity for embarrassment, but the memories returning through the protocol brought emotions she'd forgotten she could feel. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It saved our lives, and honestly, I don't care who knows. I spent 7 years hiding, planning, hoping. I'm done with secrets." A knock interrupted them. Commander Frost entered without waiting for permission, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. She studied them both with the assessing gaze of someone trained to evaluate threats and assets. "You're awake. Good, we need to talk." Sera pushed herself upright despite protesting ribs. Owen moved to help, but she waved him off. She wouldn't meet this conversation from weakness. "The cruiser," she asked, "retreated to neutral space. They're not stupid enough to push this into open conflict, but they've filed diplomatic complaints. You're wanted for treason, theft of state secrets, and murder of government operatives. Your people want you extradited." And we told them to go to hell. What they did to you, the forced conditioning, the memory wipes turning a diplomat into a weapon, it violates every treaty we've signed. You're granted asylum effective immediately. Relief flooded through Sera, echoed and amplified by Owen's reaction through their link. She'd expected bureaucracy, hearings, maybe even imprisonment while they sorted through the political mess. Not this. "Thank you," Owen said. "Don't thank me yet. There are conditions. The resonance protocol is now the most valuable piece of technology in human space. Every government, corporation, and military contractor will want it. You both become targets the moment you leave this station." "I can protect the data," Owen started, but Frost cut him off. "I'm not talking about data protection. I'm talking about protection for you. Personal security, relocation, new identities, if necessary. The human government is willing to provide all of that in exchange for your cooperation with our research teams." Sera felt Owen's instinctive resistance through the link. The protocol was his life's work, yes, but it was also deeply personal. He'd built it for her. The thought of military scientists dissecting it, weaponizing it, turning his love into a tool for war. "No," Sera said firmly, "we won't help you turn the protocol into a weapon." Frost's eyebrows rose. I never said weapon, I said research. The applications for medicine, therapy, education, they're revolutionary, but you're right to be cautious, which is why I'm offering you control. You work with our teams, but you set the boundaries. You decide what gets developed and what stays locked away. Owen and Sera exchanged a glance. Through the link, they held an entire conversation in seconds, weighing options, considering consequences, reaching consensus without speaking a word. We'll need that in writing, Owen said, with oversight provisions and kill switches if the military tries to override us. Done. I'll have legal draw up the contracts by morning. In the meantime, you're both confined to the medical wing. Not because you're prisoners, but because there are still threats out there. Get some rest. We'll talk details when you're healed. She left, and silence settled over the room. Sera shifted on the bed, making space, and Owen took the invitation without hesitation. He stretched out beside her, careful of her injuries, and she turned into him until they were pressed together from shoulder to hip. "This is really happening," she said quietly. "I'm free." "You're free." His hand found the small of her back, fingers tracing the line of her spine. The touch sent warmth cascading through her nervous system, and through the link she felt his matching response. 7 years of separation, of longing, of desperate hope, and now they had time. She tilted her head up, and he met her halfway. The kiss started soft, tentative, two people relearning each other after trauma and transformation. But the resonance connection amplified everything, turning gentle exploration into something that threatened to consume them both. She tasted his need, his relief, his love, and fed him back her own emerging emotions, gratitude and wonder, and the terrifying vulnerability of learning to trust again. His hands moved to her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones, while their thoughts tangled together. Through the link, she experienced the kiss from his perspective, saw herself through his eyes, blue skin flushed darker, orange eyes half closed, white hair spilling across the pillow. She broke away, breathing hard, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion. Too much? No, not enough. But we're in a medical bay with cameras and probably half the station monitoring our vitals. I'd rather not give them another show. Owen groaned and pressed his forehead against hers. You're right, 7 years, Sera. 7 years of thinking I'd lost you forever. You didn't lose me, you saved me. We saved each other. They lay tangled together while her body healed and his exhaustion finally caught up with him. Through the link, she felt him sliding towards sleep, his consciousness dimming but never disappearing. The connection remained, steady and permanent. More memories surfaced as she rested, their first real conversation at the diplomatic conference, where she'd challenged his assumptions about alien neurology, and he'd been delighted rather than offended. The night he'd cooked dinner and burned everything because he was too busy explaining quantum theory. Their first kiss in the observation deck, foreign stars wheeling overhead. And darker memories, too. Armed soldiers bursting into the laboratory, Owen shouting her name as they dragged her away, the cold table where they'd strapped her down, the machines that tore through her mind like claws, shredding memories and identity until nothing remained except mission parameters and kill protocols. She'd lost years, lost herself. But lying here with Owen's heartbeat steady against her ear and his presence warm in her mind, she understood something crucial. The person they'd tried to erase was still there. Damaged, yes. Changed, absolutely. But not destroyed. She was Sera Vail, diplomat, volunteer, survivor, and she was done being anyone's weapon. Owen stirred beside her, not quite awake but responsive through their link. What are you thinking? He mumbled. That I want my life back, not the old one, I can't return to that, but a new one, with you. Anything you want. I want to finish what we started. The protocol wasn't just about military applications. We wanted to bridge species, create understanding where there was only fear. His eyes opened, focusing on her with sudden intensity. That's still possible. We're proof the technology works. And proof that my government will do anything to prevent that bridge from forming. They turned me into a weapon because they were terrified of what connection might mean. So we show them they're wrong. Owen's mind raced through their link, ideas forming and connecting. She added her own thoughts, and together they built a vision. Research stations where humans and aliens could work together, medical applications that could heal neural damage, educational programs that could let people experience life through different perspectives. "I'm in," she said. "You sure this won't be easy?" "I know, but I didn't survive conditioning just to hide. They tried to make me forget who I was. I think it's time I reminded them." He kissed her then, deeper this time, his hands sliding into her hair while she pressed closer despite her healing wounds. The resonance link sang between them, amplifying every touch, every breath, until they were drowning in shared sensation. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Owen's pupils were blown wide, and his thoughts were a chaotic mess of desire and restraint. "We should stop," he said, voice rough. "Probably. But I don't want to." "Neither do I." His hand traced down her side, careful of bandages, finding the curve of her hip. Through the link, she felt his need warring with concern for her injuries. She made the decision for both of them, pulling him back into another kiss that promised more once she was healed. They fell asleep tangled together, their minds connected, planning a future neither thought they'd live to see. 3 days later, Sera stood in the outpost's armory, testing the weight of a new blade. Her ribs had healed enough that movement no longer sent shards of pain through her chest, and the doctors had cleared her for light activity. Owen watched from the doorway, his concern a steady presence through their link. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I do." She moved through a combat sequence, muscle memory guiding her body through strikes and deflections. The blade sang through the air, and with each movement she reclaimed a piece of herself that the conditioning had tried to corrupt. They'd made her a weapon. Fine. She'd be a weapon, but on her own terms, protecting what mattered instead of destroying it. "Director Kane won't stop. He can't afford to. I know too much about their program, and every day I'm free is proof that their conditioning can be broken. Then we disappear, new identities, different sector, somewhere they'll never find us." She crossed to him, hands finding his face. "I'm tired of running. They stole 7 years from us. I won't give them another day." Through the link, she felt his fear for her safety, warring with his understanding. He'd spent 7 years searching, planning, hoping. Now that he had her back, the thought of losing her again terrified him. "Together then," he said finally. "Together." The alarm klaxons shattered the moment. Red emergency lighting flooded the corridor outside, and Commander Frost's voice cut through the station's communication system. "All personnel to battle stations. We have incoming hostile forces, multiple contacts dropping out of FTL. This is not a drill." Sera and Owen ran for the command center. The main view screen showed a formation that made her blood freeze. Not just the cruiser from before, an entire battle group, 6 destroyers, 3 frigates, and the cruiser serving as flagship. Enough firepower to reduce the outpost to debris. "They're not here for diplomacy," Frost said, her hands flying across tactical displays. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they're in weapons range." "You can't fight that," Owen said. "I know, which is why we're evacuating non-essential personnel." Frost turned to Sera. "This is about you. They want you back badly enough to risk an interstellar incident. Then give me a ship, I'll lead them away. And get hunted down in open space? That's suicide." Owen's hand locked around her wrist, his thoughts screaming denial through their connection. "No, we didn't survive this far just so you can throw yourself at them." Director Kane's voice boomed through the communication channel. "Commander Frost, you are harboring stolen military property and a wanted fugitive. Surrender Operative Wraith immediately, and we will withdraw peacefully. Refuse, and we will take her by force." Sera felt the eyes of every officer in the command center turn toward her. Some hostile, most calculating. She was one person. The station held 300. "I'll go," she said. "The hell you will," Frost snapped. "We don't negotiate with terrorists, and we sure as hell don't hand over refugees to the people who tortured them." "Then what's your plan?" Frost's jaw tightened. "We hold as long as we can. Human reinforcements are 3 hours out." "You won't last," Sera said. "I know Kane. He'll disable your weapons, breach the station, and take me while killing anyone who resists. Owen's mind raced through their connection, running calculations, weighing impossible odds. Then something shifted, an idea forming, dangerous and brilliant. The protocol, he said suddenly. What about it? Kane wants it. He wants the technology even more than he wants Sera back. What if we offer him a trade? No, Sera said immediately. That technology in their hands? I know, which is why we're not actually giving it to him. Owen turned to Frost. I need access to your communication array, full bandwidth direct transmission to the flagship. What are you planning? To give him exactly what he wants, just not in the way he expects. 5 minutes later, Owen sat at the communication station, Sera beside him with her hand in his. The neural crown from his lab, salvaged during their escape, rested on both their heads, the filaments humming with active power. Director Kane, Owen said into the transmission. This is Dr. Owen Rivers. I understand you want the resonance protocol. I'm prepared to give it to you. A pause, then Kane's voice, suspicious but interested. In exchange for? Safe passage for everyone on this station. You withdraw your fleet, we transmit the complete protocol specifications, and everyone walks away. Unacceptable. Operative Wraith returns with us. Then you get nothing. And trust me, Director, you want this technology. Imagine an army that thinks as one, soldiers who share skills instantaneously. Owen let the implications hang. You've seen what it did for Sera. Imagine what it could do for your entire military. Through the link, Sera felt Owen's plan crystallizing. He wasn't going to give Kane the protocol. He was going to weaponize it against him. You have 5 minutes to decide, Owen continued. After that, I delete everything. The silence stretched, then, agreed, transmit the data. Owen's fingers flew across the controls. To anyone watching, it looked like he was uploading massive data files. But through their link, Sera saw what he was really doing, creating a resonance pulse calibrated specifically for Kane's neural signature. Transmission complete, Owen said. Confirmed. Stand by for verification. Kane's voice cut off mid-sentence. On the view screen, the flagship's formation wavered, systems flickered, and then through the communication channel, they heard screaming. What did you do? Frost demanded. Gave him the protocol, all of it, every frequency, every calibration, including the command override codes buried in Sera's conditioning. Owen's expression was grim. When Kane accessed the data, it activated a resonance burst through his ship's systems. Every operative with neural conditioning just had their programming simultaneously activated and deactivated, repeatedly. Sera stared at him, understanding and horror mixing in equal measure. You turned the protocol into a weapon. I turned their weapon back on them. The flagship's formation collapsed entirely. Within minutes, the entire battle group was fleeing in random directions as their crews struggled with system failures and neural feedback. They're retreating, Frost announced, all contacts breaking off and jumping to FTL. The command center erupted in cheers, but Sera felt Owen's guilt through their link, the weight of what he'd just done. It was necessary, she said quietly. Doesn't make it right. No, but it makes us alive. 3 weeks later, they stood in the observation deck, watching ships come and go. Owen's arm was around Sera's waist, while their minds hummed in constant connection. Commander Frost found them there. Your transport leaves in an hour. New colony on the frontier, good research facilities, far enough from political centers to avoid attention. Thank you, Sera said, for everything. Thank Dr. Rivers. He's the one who saved us. Frost paused. There's something else. We've been getting inquiries, other aliens, other victims of similar programs. They heard what happened here. They want to know if the protocol can help them too. Sera and Owen exchanged a glance through their link. Send us their information, Owen said. We'll see what we can do. After Frost left, they stood in silence, watching stars wheel past. We're really doing this, Sera said, starting over. Terrified, but also hopeful. For the first time in 7 years, I can see a future. Owen turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You were always more than what they made you. Even when they tried to erase you, you were still you, still the woman who believed in bridges instead of walls. I couldn't have found my way back without you. Yes, you could have. I just helped you remember the path. She kissed him then, slow and deep, the resonance link amplifying everything until they were drowning in shared sensation. When they finally broke apart, she pressed her forehead against his. I found you, she whispered. No, he said, echoing her words from the medical bay. I found you. We found each other. They boarded the transport an hour later, leaving the outpost behind. Their destination was a colony world on the frontier, far from the centers of power, close to the kind of people who needed help. The protocol hummed between them as they flew, constant and unbreakable. It was more than technology now. It was proof that connection could survive anything. Trauma, conditioning, 7 years of separation. As the stars streaked past and Owen's hand found hers, Sera understood something fundamental. They hadn't just survived. They'd won. Not through violence or superior firepower, but through the simple act of refusing to let go. She was Sera Vail, diplomat, survivor, and finally blessedly free.